In 1913 by Booty Sprague, and later sold to Bill Innes, who was the Union Bank manager at that time, and they amalgamated about 1915, I think, with the Royal Bank in Grande Prairie here. And this house was owned up until the time of his passing by Jack Alloway, and now it is the property of their Jack Alloway children. And we feel that it would be of great historic value to the city. End of the house, it looks in very good condition. It's been plastered, and it really looks in good condition. And then the south side there has the piece that was probably built on a little bit later, but I'm not sure about that. And there's a squirrel right in the middle of it all. Can you see the squirrel, Karen? No. Going up the tree. This was all set on a cement foundation about 1942, I think. Barn was to have been built in 1911 by Mr. Sprague as well, and it looks in very good condition for 80 years old. The west end, it appears, has been recovered in later years, maybe to protect the logs from further decay or whatever. And the vines on the side and the horseshoes over the door for luck, and it's still being used for a storage shed. And of course, the most necessary little building on the place was the little biffy out back, and that looks in really good condition, but I have no idea when that was built. Give you an insight of the little biffy. It appears to be very old, but it was whitewashed inside at one time. But there's no hole. There's a nice little painting done by Mrs. Alloway in here. For a nice little painting, it looks like it should be in the kitchen. There seems to be a bit of decay on some of these walls behind the plywood cover, so I'm sure that it has been investigated though. But notice the good cement foundation. That should be good. Bought a team of horses to be hitched at the old hitching post right in the yard here. I'm sure that was the original site for a hitching post in the shade of the trees and the whole bit. This was the house that was built in 1952, I believe. And it is the house that the Alloways lived in right up until the time of their passing. This was the property of Alexander Forbes that the house stands on, and it was a long ways from downtown at that time because there wasn't much of a town, but it did look over the hill, and they had real vision when they built it here. This was built in 1914, I do believe, and they always had room out in the yard here for a tent to be pitched, for a recovery room, and of course places for the horses to be tied as well. The south side of the house, and you'll notice the garage doors were probably put in later years. They wouldn't have needed them back then. But the chimney, and there's a slight lean to the house, but it looks in pretty good condition for being 77 years old. Homestead. Among the first settlers on the Grande Prairie were the Reverend Alexander Forbes and his wife, Agnes Sorrel Forbes, arriving here in 1910. They quickly filed on their homestead, established McQueen Presbyterian Church, and started the first hospital in the district. The hospital portion of this building was built in 1911 and was the domain of Mrs. Forbes. A trained nurse with two-story manse was added in 1912. As was the custom in those days, this house was built by the owners and their neighbors using local materials. It is the last log building preserved on its original site in the Grande Prairie area. The Forbes Homestead was designated a classified historic site on May 12, 1976 by Honorable Horace Schmidt, Minister of Culture. By this act, the province of Alberta salutes the Reverend and Mrs. Forbes in their contribution to the people and the history of Grande Prairie, erected by the province of Alberta. Probably what you should have done is gone from one side to the other. These windows are so tiny. Little storm windows on them. It actually looks really nice, the village, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Look.
Did the guy play on snow out there in the parking